My sister's wedding gave me a limited guest sticker. My uncle's reaction changed everything. I stood at the edge of Boone Hall Plantation's cotton dock, the July 2025 Charleston air thick with humidity and the scent of magnolias. My sister Megan's wedding reception was about to start, and I was still buzzing from the ceremony at St. Michael's Church downtown. The stained glass windows had glowed like they were holding the sunset, and Megan, in her lace gown, looked like she had stepped out of a magazine. I was proud of her, proud to be her sister, even if we had not always been close. I had spent 10 months saving for a gift that I hoped would make her day unforgettable, a $10,000 check for her honeymoon to Hawaii. It was more than I could afford, but I wanted her to have something special, something to ease the stress I knew she felt. My name is Lila Harper. I am 32, a graphic designer who works from a small studio apartment in Charleston's French Quarter. My place is nothing fancy. High ceilings, creaky wood floors, a desk by the window where I sketch logos for local businesses. I make about $50,000 a year, which covers my $1,200 rent and my car payment, but leaves little for extras. To save that $10,000, I had taken on extra freelance projects, designing menus for low-country restaurants and flyers for art galleries. I skipped a trip to Asheville I had planned, traded my coffee shop habit for instant coffee, and moved to a cheaper apartment. Every dollar felt like a promise to Megan, a way to show I was there for her, even when she did not always notice. At the reception check-in table, I was behind a couple in their 50s, laughing as they received gold-embossed name cards with their table numbers. The table was draped in white linen, a mason jar of baby's breath at the center. Classic Charleston style. I stepped forward, expecting the same, but the woman behind the table barely looked up. She slid a flimsy sticker toward me, the kind you might get at a high school reunion. It read, "Limited Guest," in bold black letters. I stared at it, my fingers hovering over the sticky backing. I thought it was a mistake, a mix-up with the guest list. My uncle Frank Sullivan, my mom's older brother, was standing nearby adjusting his tie. He leaned over, squinting at the sticker, and muttered, "That is not right, kid." His voice was low, gruff, like the retired firefighter he was, always ready to call out nonsense. I looked around, hoping for an explanation. The venue was stunning, string lights crisscrossing above, wooden beams glowing under candlelight, the Ashley River just beyond the windows. Charleston weddings are a big deal, all about hospitality and bringing people together. I had assumed I would be part of that, sitting with my parents, Carol and Tom, maybe even giving a toast. But that sticker felt like a door slamming shut. I peeled it off the paper and stuck it on my dress, my hands trembling a little. I told myself it was nothing, just a clerical error. But deep down, something twisted in my chest, a mix of confusion and a quiet, nagging hurt. I wanted to laugh it off, but I also wanted to cry, and I hated that I felt both at once. I walked into the cotton dock at Boone Hall Plantation, the limited guest sticker clinging to my dress like a bad joke. The reception hall was alive. Tables draped in white linens, centerpieces of hydrangeas and driftwood, servers weaving through with trays of shrimp and grits. Charleston weddings are all about that low-country charm, where everyone feels like family, even if they are not. I expected to be part of that, to sit with my parents at a round table near the dance floor, maybe tease Megan about her first dance with Ethan, her fiancé. Instead, I stood frozen by the seating chart, a framed board with calligraphy names and table numbers. I scanned it twice, then a third time. My name was not there. Not with the Harpers, not with the cousins, not even at the back with the plus ones. I approached a server, a young guy in a black vest balancing a tray of sweet tea cocktails. I asked about the sticker, keeping my voice light like I was in on the mix-up. He glanced at it and said, "Limited guests get drinks and dancing, but no dinner. Saves on catering." His tone was matter-of-fact, like he had explained it a dozen times. I nodded, my throat tightening. Dinner at a Charleston wedding runs about $75 a plate in 2025, maybe 100 with the crab cake upgrade Megan had bragged about. Saving one plate was nothing compared to the $40,000 budget I knew they had blown through. Venue, flowers, that open bar with top-shelf bourbon. It was not about money, it was about me. I found a spot near the wall, clutching my purse, the envelope with the $10,000 check inside. That money was my heart on paper. I had work nights at my desk, the glow of my laptop burning my eyes, designing logos for oyster bars and boutique hotels. My apartment in the French Quarter was a shoebox, 400 square feet, a futon I never folded up, a kitchen counter cluttered with sketch pads and instant coffee jars. I had moved there to save on rent, $1,200 a month, instead of the $1,500 I used to pay. I gave up my annual trip to Asheville, where I would hike the Blue Ridge and clear my head. I stopped meeting friends at Husk for cocktails, $40 a pop with tip, all for Megan, because she had cried to me last year about her credit card debt, about how she and Ethan could not afford the wedding and a honeymoon. I wanted to be the sister who showed up. My parents, Carol and Tom, were at the head table, laughing with Ethan's parents. Carol wore a navy dress, her pearls catching the light, always playing the perfect Southern mom. Tom, in his seersucker suit, was already on his second bourbon. They saw me, I know they did, but they looked away, like I was a stranger at a bar. Megan was circling the room, her veil trailing, thanking guests. She had not spoken to me since the rehearsal dinner, where she had been too busy fussing over the menu. I told myself it was wedding stress, that she was not herself. But standing there, I started to wonder. Uncle Frank found me by the bar, his face red from the heat, or maybe annoyance. He was 55, broad-shouldered, with a buzz cut from his firefighter days. He always carried a pocket knife and a story about the old Charleston fire station on Meeting Street. He pulled me aside, his voice low. "I heard your mom tell the planner to cut non-essential guests from dinner. Said it was to trim costs. I told her it was nonsense, but she waved me off." His eyes narrowed, like he was sizing up a fire he could not put out. I wanted to argue, to say it was a mistake, but the sticker on my dress said otherwise. Carol was not cruel, not usually. She had her reasons. Maybe she thought I would not care, since I was always the low-maintenance one, the one who paid for family dinners at Poogan's porch without complaining. But this felt different, like she had drawn a line and put me on the wrong side of it. I stayed through the first dance, Megan and Ethan swaying to some Ed Sheeran song. Guests clapped, phones flashing for Instagram. I wanted to feel happy, but my chest ached, a mix of anger and something softer, like grief. I kept thinking about the $10,000, how I had written the check in my apartment, my cat, Jasper, curled up on the desk. I had imagined Megan opening it, maybe hugging me, saying I had made their dream possible. Now I felt like a fool. Part of me wanted to storm out, but another part, a smaller, stubborn part, wanted to stay, to prove I belonged. I hated how those feelings fought inside me, like they were tearing me in half. The music at Boone Hall Plantation's cotton docks swelled, some slow ballad that made the dance floor glow under the string lights. Megan and Ethan were still swaying, her head on his shoulder, guests snapping photos like they were at a movie premiere. I stood by the wall, the limited guest sticker itching against my dress, my purse heavy with the envelope I had carried all day. The $10,000 check inside felt like a weight, not a gift anymore. I had spent months picturing this moment, handing it to Megan, seeing her face light up, knowing I had helped her start this new chapter. But now, watching her laugh with Ethan's cousins while I stood alone, I realized she did not see me. None of them did. Not my parents, not my sister, not even the server who passed me with a tray of mini crab cakes I was not allowed to eat. My hands started shaking, not from nerves, but from a clarity that hit me all at once. I was not a guest here. I was an afterthought, someone they expected to show up, give, and disappear. The hurt in my chest turned sharp, like a splinter I could not ignore. I glanced at Uncle Frank, who was at the bar, sipping a bourbon and watching me with that steady look he had, like he knew I was about to do something big. I took a breath, straightened my shoulders, and walked to the gift table near the entrance. It was quieter now, most guests seated for dinner, the table cluttered with pastel gift bags and sealed envelopes. Mine stood out, plain white, no ribbon, just my handwriting on the front. Megan and Ethan. I picked it up, my fingers brushing the paper. I opened it, slid out the check, and held it for a second. $10,000. Every late night at my desk, every skipped coffee date, every time I told myself it was worth it for family. I folded it, tucked it into my purse, and turned to the room. A few guests nearby were watching, curious. I did not raise my voice, but I made sure it carried. "Guess you will not need this, then." The words felt heavy, like dropping a stone into still water. I turned and walked toward the exit, my heels clicking on the wood floor. The room shifted. Megan froze mid-toast, her glass halfway to her lips. My mom, Carol, let out a gasp, her hand clutching her pearls. My dad, Tom, stood up so fast his chair scraped, shouting, "Lila, get back here!" A murmur rippled through the tables, guests whispering, some craning their necks. Ethan looked confused, his arm still around Megan. But Frank, leaning against the bar, gave me a small nod, his mouth twitching, like he was proud. I kept walking past the linen-draped tables, past the hydrangea centerpieces, out into the humid Charleston night. The oak-lined avenue of Boone Hall stretched ahead, the moss dripping from the trees like it was guarding my escape. I climbed into my 2023 Honda CR-V, parked under a live oak, the car I was still paying $500 a month for. My hands gripped the steering wheel, my heart pounding so loud I could hear it over the cicadas. That $10,000 was mine until they cashed it, and I knew they had no right to it. Not legally, not after this. Charleston weddings cost a fortune. $40,000 for Megan's, maybe more with that string quartet and custom cake. They had overspent by at least $5,000, counting on my check to cover their Hawaii honeymoon, a $12,000 trip they could not afford. But they did not get to have me and push me away too. Driving down Long Point Road, the plantation fading in my rear view, I felt a rush of something, freedom maybe, or power. But it was mixed with a hollow ache, like I had lost something I could not name. I wanted to scream, to call someone, to tell them I had finally stood up for myself. But I also wanted to pull over and sob because the family I thought I had was not real. I kept driving, the Ashley River glinting under the moonlight, and let both feelings sit there, messy and true. I barely slept that night in my French Quarter apartment, the ceiling fan humming above my futon, my cat Jasper curled up by my feet, oblivious to the storm in my head. I kept replaying the moment I walked out of Boone Hall Plantation, the limited guest sticker crumpled in my purse next to the $10,000 check. Part of me felt strong, like I'd finally drawn a line. But another part kept whispering that I had ruined everything, that I should have stayed quiet like I always did. By morning, my phone was lit up with texts. My mom, Carol, wrote, "You humiliated us in front of everyone." My dad, Tom, sent, "Come to the house. We need to talk." Megan's message was vague. "I did not know it would be like that. Please call." Not one of them said sorry. It was all about their embarrassment, their day, their image. I sat at my desk, the one I had hunched over for months to save that money, and stared at the texts. My apartment was small, the walls lined with my sketches, logos for Charleston oyster bars, a poster for the Spoleto Festival. The window looked out on a cobblestone alley where tourists snapped photos of pastel row houses. I loved this city, its history, its warmth. But right now, it felt like it was closing in. I knew Megan and Ethan needed that $10,000. They had spent $40,000 on the wedding. Boone Hall's venue fee alone was $8,000, plus catering, flowers, and that custom low-country boil station. Their combined income, maybe $80,000 a year, was stretched thin. Megan had told me they were counting on my gift for their $12,000 Hawaii honeymoon. Flights, a resort in Maui, snorkeling trips. Without it, They were stuck. Uncle Frank called around noon, his voice steady. "You did the right thing, kid. Make them earn you back." He had always been my anchor, the one who taught me to fish off the battery when I was 10, who slipped me $20 when I was broke in college. His words stuck with me, so I agreed to meet my family at my parents' house in West Ashley, a brick rancher valued at $600,000 in 2025's Charleston market. Their living room was all oak furniture and family photos, me and Megan as kids smiling on Folly Beach. Carol sat on the couch, her hands folded, still wearing her mother-of-the-bride composure. Tom stood by the fireplace, arms crossed, like he was ready to lecture. Megan was there, no Ethan, her eyes red like she had not slept either. They started talking, all at once. Carol said it was a miscommunication, that the planner had overbooked the dinner. Tom called it unfortunate logistics. Megan mumbled, "I thought you would be fine standing since you never care about fancy stuff." I listened, nodding, my hands in my lap. I wanted them to admit it, to say they had chosen to push me out, but they danced around it, like I was the one who had made it messy. Carol was not cruel. She had spent years organizing church suppers, always making sure everyone had a plate. I think she told herself I would not mind, that I was the easygoing daughter who never complained, but she had to know it would hurt. Tom, always practical, probably saw it as a budget fix, one less plate to pay for. Megan, though, she was the one who stung most. She had known about my gift, had thanked me weeks ago when I hinted at something big. I think she was so caught up in her perfect day, she let it happen, convincing herself it was no big deal. I took a breath and spoke. "I might give you the $10,000, but it would be a loan. 5% interest, 3 years, signed contract, monthly payments of $295. The room went quiet. Carol's mouth opened, then closed. "It was a gift, Lila," she said, her voice sharp. "Gifts are for family who treat me like family," I replied. Tom's face reddened, but he did not argue. Megan looked at the floor. Frank, who had been leaning against the wall, spoke up. "She is being fairer than you deserve." His voice was calm, but it carried the weight of someone who had seen worse betrayals in his 20 years at the fire station. I knew the loan was legal. A simple promissory note would make it binding in South Carolina, and 5% was standard for personal loans in 2025. I also knew they could not afford to borrow elsewhere, not with their wedding debt. Carol and Tom had their house, but their savings were tied up in retirement accounts. Megan and Ethan were maxed out on credit cards. They needed me, and for the first time, I felt that power. But it did not feel good, not really. I wanted to fix it, to hug them and pretend it never happened. I also wanted to walk away and never look back. Both feelings churned inside me, and I let them, because they were mine. I left the house, promising nothing, and drove back to my apartment. The sun was setting over the Ravenel Bridge, painting the sky pink. I wanted to believe they would come around, but I was not sure I cared anymore. I sat on my futon, Jasper purring beside me, and wondered if I had been too harsh. Then I remembered Frank's nod at the reception, and I held on to that like a lifeline in the dark. 3 weeks after the wedding, I was still waking up to the same tangle of feelings. My French Quarter apartment felt quieter now, like the air had settled. I would sit at my desk, sketching logos for a new seafood shack on King Street. Jasper sprawled across my papers, chasing the sunlight. Charleston was moving on. Tourists filled the Battery, horse carriages clopped down Meeting Street, and the summer heat clung to everything. But my phone had gone mostly silent. No more texts from my parents, Carol and Tom. Megan had not reached out since our meeting at their West Ashley house. I thought I would feel relieved, but part of me missed the noise, the chaos of family, even if it hurt. I hated that I missed it. Then, out of nowhere, a text came from Sarah Klein, Megan's cousin. She was 25, quiet, the kind who blended into the background at family gatherings. I barely knew her. She had helped with the wedding RSVPs, always scribbling on a clipboard. Her message stopped me cold. "Hey Lila, I hope this is okay. I saw the original guest list for the wedding. You were at the family table, same as your parents. 3 days before, your mom emailed a new list. You were the only one moved to limited guest." Megan signed off on it. I thought it was weird, but I figured it was a family thing. "I am sorry. You did not deserve that." I sat on my futon staring at my phone, the words blurring. It was not a mistake. Carol had planned it and Megan had agreed, knowing I was bringing $10,000 for their Hawaii honeymoon. That money was supposed to cover their $12,000 trip. Flights, a Maui resort, maybe a sunset sail. Saving my $75 dinner plate was nothing, a drop in their $40,000 wedding budget. It was not about money. It was about me not fitting into their picture of the perfect day. Carol, who always fussed over appearances, probably thought I would not mind, that I was too practical to care about a seat. Megan, caught up in her bridal glow, likely told herself I would understand, that I was the sister who always let things slide. But they knew. They knew what I had sacrificed. Nights at my desk, no Asheville hikes, no cocktails with friends. They knew, and they chose to push me out. I put the check in my savings account where it would earn 4% interest, maybe grow to $11,000 by next year. I started planning a trip to Savannah, just for me. A long weekend, maybe $2,000 for a hotel, some good food, and a ghost tour through the squares. I deserved it. I stopped checking the family group chat where cousins posted about shrimp boils and nobody replied. My parents' silence was loudest. Carol, who used to forward me recipes for she-crab soup, sent nothing. Tom ignored an email I sent about a work project, pretending it got lost. I think they were waiting, hoping I would cave, that I would hand over the money and pretend nothing happened. But I was done being that person. My birthday came a month after the wedding. I had planned a dinner at The Ordinary, a seafood spot downtown, thinking maybe my family would show up like they did every year. I canceled the reservation. Instead, I drove to Sullivan's Island Beach, just across the Ravenel Bridge. I ordered takeout from the obstinate daughter, fried oysters and a side of cornbread, $30 with tip, and sat on a blanket by the dunes. The sunset turned the sky peach and gold, the waves steady and soft. I ate alone, the salt air mixing with the food, and for the first time in weeks, I felt light. Not happy, exactly, but free. I wanted to call someone to share it, but I also wanted to keep it for myself. Both feelings were there, and I let them be. Uncle Frank sent me a note that week, handwritten, the kind he used to leave on my car when I was a teenager. "Proud of you, kid," it said. "You are family to me no matter what." I folded it and tucked it into my desk drawer next to my sketches. Frank was not perfect, he could be stubborn, always telling the same fire station stories, but he saw me. That was enough. I heard from Sarah later that Megan and Ethan postponed their honeymoon, maybe for a year. They were looking at cheaper options, maybe a cabin in the Smoky Mountains. I did not feel guilty, but I did feel a pang, like I had lost something I could not get back. I missed the idea of family, the one I thought we were. Sunday dinners at my parents' house, laughing over old photos. But I did not miss the real one, the one that left me standing on the sidelines. I was learning to live with that, one quiet evening at a time, with Jasper purring and the Charleston skyline outside my window.